Two writers trapped by AI. That is a very simplified premise of split fiction, which is a mind-bending adventure that takes two storytellers, forces them to survive inside their own creations. Before we dive any deeper into this, if you haven't played split fiction and you are wanting to experience it firsthand or avoid spoilers, I would recommend going and playing the game first and then coming back to this video later, as I'm going to discuss a lot of major plot points. Mio and Zoe are polar opposites in almost every way. Mio is a sci-fi writer, and Zoe is a fantasy storyteller. But when they are lured in by Raider Publishing with the promise of a revolutionary way to experience storytelling, their worlds collide in ways that they never expected. Now, they are trapped inside a shifting, unpredictable blend of their own stories. They have to navigate clashing ideas, overcome their differences, and ultimately find a way out. I noticed playing split fiction that there are, to me at least, 4 very distinct themes that kind of get touched on, and our first theme is around AI and creativity. On the surface, split fiction is about 2 writers learning to work together. But when we dig a little bit deeper, it really is a real-world reflection of the growing concerns around AI and creative theft. The machine that traps Mio and Zoe isn't just a plot device. It's showing the growing concern that AI can be used to strip the soul out of creative work and repackage it, especially without permission, lacking the understanding of what it's supposed to mean. And storytelling, or art in general, is always going to be based off of the creator's lived experiences, emotions, and perspective. That is not something a machine can ever fully recreate. Doesn't lessen the fear around it and the fact that it can be a mimic. But I like to look at this portion of split fiction as Mio and Zoe fight to reclaim their stories, their creative works, their ideas, even the ones that they made when they were children and just scared of the dentist.
Wait a minute. Oh no.
The dentist will see you now.
Mio!
Make a wish.
Oh my gosh!
Now, which one of you needs to be yanked?
It's a reminder at how personal and powerful creative work really is, especially since AI at its core is just a tool to be used by humans, and the way in which humans utilize AI, that's more where it's scary. Our second theme is writing and storytelling, or frankly creating, as a way of processing feelings, emotions, and thoughts. As the story unfolds, we're seeing that Mio and Zoe use writing as more than just their job. It's how they end up dealing with and coping with the world around them. Writing is kind of therapeutic for them. It's how they end up processing loss and trauma and difficult relationships, and it's how they're able to rewrite what happens. It's a safe place for them, and make peace with some of the things that maybe they can't control. For many of us who write or create art or create in general, this is something that resonates really deeply. We draw upon those personal experiences, and storytelling is something that really helps us understand ourselves and to reflect.
Write this silly story where I get to save him. Like it would change anything.
And escape, and to heal.
A chance to grow up together. This whole story, this whole adventure, it's such a beautiful way to honor your sister.
There's so much that art and storytelling offer, but we really get to see how this gets utilized when Mio and Zoe kind of have some confrontation and conflict around Zoe trying to share her story with Mio, and Mio does not care. Mio's not invested, and Zoe is like, I am just trying to ideally prepare us for what is ahead. I wrote this. I know what's happening. If you listen to me, we'll be able to do this faster. There is a moment where Mio finally realizes that as desperate as she is to get out of the situation they're in, she needs to take a minute. I'm going off on a tangent. But Zoe is big on saying to Mio that they put a bit of themselves into their writing, and Zoe seeks to understand what's written in front of her. Zoe is looking at this and trying to have the conversation that writing and art starts. I mean, it's like writing a letter to somebody. You receive the letter, you read the letter, you take it in and you understand and you process what it's meaning, what they're saying, what they're conveying, and then it's on you as the recipient to respond. Storytelling is one half of the conversation. A writer gives you their input, their thoughts, their feelings, their perspective. And it leads us into the second theme that I noticed, which is challenging the way that you view the world. The heart of split fiction I really found is that there is this idea of perspective, how we see others, how we see ourselves, and how those views can be changed. Going back to the very beginning of when we meet Mio and Zoe, they are dismissing each other's genres, they don't understand each other, and kind of, to some degree, don't want to understand each other. Zoe thinks that sci-fi is cold and dark and depressing and dreary, and whoever would want to read that. And Mio looks at fantasy and thinks that it's childish, it's frivolous, it's silly, and not worth the time of day. But as they are going through their journey together, and they're forced to experience not just their own story, but the other's story. They're experiencing the genre that they've written off, that they've said, nope, that's just not for me. They actually start to understand each other. You see clips where Mio and Zoe are talking about like, oh, all of your settings are in the city. Are you a city girl? It's so clear that Zoe specifically wants to try and understand Mio. Constantly asking Mio, what was your inspiration for this? Why did you do this? She's the one who kind of extends the olive branch first.
I don't care. Well, I kind of do. Why? You don't know me.
Maybe not. But seeing as we're trapped here together, it could be useful to know what to expect going forward.
This is what makes the stories meaningful, is that it's Mio's perspective, it's Zoe's perspective, and this is a challenge on perspective that might extend to you as the player as well. You might come into playing the game leaning more towards one genre or the other, or maybe you don't care for either genre, but because the game is encouraging you to interact with both genres, both stories, and to play with these really fun mechanics. When my partner and I played, we chose our characters based on the stories that we read and that we gravitate towards. I love a cozy fantasy, feel-good story, love it. So I chose to play as Zoe. And my partner is someone who will read just about anything, but he would also much rather read sci-fi over fantasy, so he played as Mio. But the thing that made our playthrough so special to us is the fact that we kind of accidentally picked each other's personality. I am a lot more like Mio. I'm a little more standoffish and logical, and he is more like Zoe, who is open, curious, and expressive. And honestly, that was one of the more enjoyable parts because we kind of got to play as each other. We kind of got to see from the other's perspective in that way.
Say hello to Mr. Hammer.
Hello, Mr. Hammer.
And that was honestly one of my favorite aspects of playing the game, which kind of leads into the fourth theme that I noticed, which is community and healing. This is a story about connection. People need each other, especially when the world is dark and scary and unwelcoming. And it's something we see reflected where Mio and Zoe couldn't escape alone. They needed each other in that way. But the other thing that we see is how they open up to each other and how they need each other in the sense of like, no one should have to experience hardship alone. Everyone should have somebody in their corner. And honestly, their journey, it does mimic the reality of making friends in real world, where the people that challenge us the most, the ones who show up and ask the hard questions that we don't want to answer or talk about, they're the ones that help us grow the most. And they're the ones who are always going to be in your corner. One of the biggest things that I really kind of saw through this was genuine connection and genuine friendship.
Having a friend.
Friend? You mean best friend?
Don't push it.
I mean, you can see if there's maybe a little bit more than just friendship there, but at the very least, it's a really solid friendship. In conclusion, from our 4 themes, Split Fiction isn't just a game about escaping a machine. That's definitely a component to it. It's challenging what we think we know. It's encouraging embracing collaboration to save what matters, and recognizing that the best stories are the ones that have heart and soul to them. What do you think about Mio and Zoe's journey? About how they had to work together to save not only their stories, but themselves? And what is the role that you think AI should play in storytelling, art, in the world? I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Let's have a conversation about it. If you enjoy diving into the stories of games, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss out on part 2. Because I had to restrain myself quite a bit from deep diving into Mio and Zoe specifically as characters, as well as Raider, who is our main antagonist and I kind of brushed over during this video. So if you are wanting to see that, if you're curious about that, you can expect a video on that soon. And I will see you next time.